Do not go anywhere. We have the current leading content creator in FPL in the house right now. He's revealing his team for Game Week 10. We're going to talk strategy. We're going to look at big at the back. We're going to look at 4-5-1, all with a guy that is 37k in the world. He's a good friend of mine. You may know him from FPL Double Pivot YouTube channel. Kieran, welcome to the channel, mate. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, first of all, for having me on today. Definitely looking forward to us having a chat. Never thought I'd be featuring on one of these with you.
Well, you know, the way you play FPL, I always thought there was a chance. Like, you know, on this channel, I like to bring on guests who are doing really well and follow their journey throughout the season. We did it with FPL Chai years ago, for example. And to do really well in FPL, in terms of to really excel, like, sure, to get consistent good ranks, you can play very safe and do really well. But to have the reach to dizzy heights and be the number one content creator in the space at the moment, you've got to play the game a bit differently. And you have been this season, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. It's all or nothing with pretty much how I play. With consistent probably isn't a word that you'd use to describe my ranks. They're up or down. So yeah, it's nice when a season starts off quite well to begin with.
How do you describe yourself as an FPL manager? Because from noticing your team over the last 18 months, we were in a WhatsApp group together. I would say you're an aggressive, high upside differential chaser.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think one of the flaws I had over the last couple of years is if I started to think of a differential player and then I saw them popping up on everyone else's channel and everyone talking about them, I'd almost be stubborn and go, well, I don't want them anymore. I want someone else. But why? You sort of came to that conclusion beforehand. They're still a good asset. So it does tend to be that willing to take risks, go on players early before they're getting the points just to see if it will pay off.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's almost like you've shotgunned someone, you feel like you have, and then you see others going, you're like, oh, he's now not a sexy pick. I've got to go for someone that no one's looking at. It's like, no, that's still the right guy, and still a differential in his own right. Okay, well, look, let's just go and have a quick look. And before we see your team, I want to just talk about strategy this season, because you love underlying data too, and you've always done really well, I find, with the UEFA games, the Champions League game, the Euros, because of the recoveries. And obviously, we've seen a version of that in FPL this year with defensive contributions, of which recoveries, clearances are 2 of the 5. Just talk to me about that, because I feel like you've chased DEFCON more than most in the space from game week 1. Many of us are getting on the DEFCON train now, or a couple of weeks ago. You were there quite early.
Yeah, I think for me, it had always been probably one of the strongest additions that you can have in terms of something that was reliable and something you could look at from a data perspective that was almost repeatable. So I'm someone who, I like looking at data. I prefer watching the game and sort of getting the picks from that and then using the data to kind of back it up, or maybe the other way around, of sort of you see something when you're researching one player and someone else jumps out and then you go back and watch some of their football and go, hang on a second. So those parts were always interesting. And like you said, sort of playing the UEFA games, ball recoveries were always almost like a cheat code, because you could get in someone like Otamendi who would just rack up the points. The sort of key difference was with there being that ceiling in FPL of it being maximum 2 points that I think put a lot of people off, but forgetting that that's like 2/3 of an assist and could happen way more frequently. So for me, it became looking at those players, but not looking at them just as a DEFCON, almost looking for that magic formula of who is a good or decent team with a player that can get this, that also is still a target man from set pieces. Because if you can get that blend of those players, then yes, you're getting your DEFCON for sort of that relatively consistent low or sort of higher floor. But then if they do get that goal, you could be getting a 12, 13, 14 pointer.
We've seen some massive hauls from defenders. Players like Tarkowski, Senesi tick a lot of boxes, but then more recently we've seen Rodon and Mukiele come up with huge returns. Obviously Van de Ven at the weekend. I said on Chasing Green Arrows yesterday, if you didn't have Van de Ven and Burmo or Rodon, didn't have any of those 3 players, you're on a red arrow this week. And then you put in the chat, not necessarily, because you didn't have any of those 3 players, but you still got a green arrow. You're the only person I know that got a green arrow without owning one of those 3. So look, these were your points last week. We're going to see your team moving forward. You've got free transfers, you've got money in the bank. But first and foremost, just talk through game week 9 in a nutshell for you, because you're backing against the template a little bit with this team.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one, because I think it's probably the only game week this season where I've not had 4 defenders. And I think part of my Arsenal bias came into play for that. And also the hope that we all had of Mark Guru sort of getting something starting for Chelsea against what seemed like a good fixture on paper. On reflection, if I'd started Lacroix, then I'd be sort of a couple of points further or better off. So it was one of those where, for me, this was a week where I sort of rolled from the previous week, where I'd come off the back of sort of 104 point game week. And that was thanks to Mukiele coming in for Van Dijk and changing Rutter to Eze, which didn't pay off. But then that Eze transfer sort of came through clutch for me this game week, with him getting that goal, getting the max bonus, and sort of securing that 11 points. So I think we had a game week where the attackers weren't scoring, right? Apart from Mbumo, there wasn't really anyone who got those goals. So I was fortunate that Eze kind of offset not having any of those defenders that hold this week.
Yeah, I like it. So you're right. Like usually it is a back four. We can see from your bench, you've got Lacroix and Munoz there with 1.4 million guy Mukiele, who is playable still most weeks. And obviously Gabriel and Senesi. So you've got 4 defenders from Senesi upwards. So like around the 5 million mark upwards. Just talk to us about big at the back in general and how that's worked for you so far.
Yeah, so it's paid off. Lacroix was someone who I named my team off of him, just because I spent some time living out in the States, and there was a drink that I became obsessed with out there called Lacroix, which was a brand of fizzy water or carbonated water. So he came into my team because looked good from DEFCON, was kind of unsexy compared to some of the other ones in game week 1, but also had like these fantastic underlying stats from set pieces where he was one of the biggest XG underperformers last year. Yeah. So I thought, hang on a second, surely by luck he might be able to sort of nod one in. So he was in from game week 1. I think him and Munoz have sort of been there the entire time. Senesi, when he emerged, just again, it was getting onto him nice and early. But Munoz, I remember talking with you pre-season at the start of it. He just felt like one of those set and forget ones that missed everyone getting obsessed with DEFCON. He still was one of those going, well, there's no Trent anymore. So here is going to be the most attacking fullback. And if you're going for one, go for it. And I think then over time, it was sort of Arsenal just became reliable from set pieces and from clean sheet perspective. So again, got Gabriel in, I think sort of game week 2 or game week 3, when I realised that I'd gone for a few of the wrong players. Because I'd thrown in some fun picks at the start. Like I had a De Kuiper thrown in there. I think I probably had a 4 million spot, and I think it was probably Quillen Dishy Hartman, who now is coming into light with his assist threat. But at the start of the season, slow, and Burnley being arguably the worst of the promoted teams.
Yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, we all made that mistake not having Gabriel from Game Week 1. We looked at the fixtures, but one guy you had Game Week 1, as you mentioned, I did, and we discussed this pre-season, was Daniel Munoz. And people were put off by the Palace fixtures, but also the fact you could get a Mark Gahey or a Richards or a Lacroix for much less. And with that in mind, I think people went, let's go slow and steady on Palace or chase DEFCON. But actually, Munoz has been fine for DEFCON. But just looking at Sky Sports' last 2-year data ranks, for all defenders in the Premier League, goal contributions top, shots top, chances created from open play top. I mean, he's not on set pieces, which is a shame. All the touches in the opposition box. He is the most advanced defender in open play by some distance. Like gone are the days of Marcus Alonso, João Cancelo, Trent. He is the only real attacker from fullback, you could say, and he obviously plays as a wing back. And he's winning possession in the final third, and that's part of your DEFCON coming into play. I don't have Munoz in my team. I wildcarded him out in 7. He scored that week. And then I think in game week 8, he got 2 assists. So the 2 weeks after I ditched him, he got 3 attacking returns. I want him back. Chris Richards has been good for me, but I see that as a big upgrade. We don't have to worry about fixtures for Munoz, do we? We have to start viewing him as an attacker.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think there are certain ones you can bench him. So I think, he didn't get anything against Arsenal. So I think Arsenal away, Liverpool away, Newcastle away. But outside of that, I'd agree with you. Even the home games against those teams, you'd fancy him a bit more and you'd be scared about benching him.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just look at your some of the other headlines in your team. One is Eze, who obviously came in big for you. So in terms of points last week, Eze was there with, was it 11 points? Obviously, he got the goal, he gets bonus, he gets the clean sheet point. As an Arsenal fan, you know how good defensively Arteta is. Was your plan to go double attack always? Is that just a case of chasing the good fixture run and hoping the ceiling's there? But I feel like double defense is the shout. But at the same point, if you're on the right 2 attackers, Eze and Saka are great picks.
Yeah, I think part of it is scars of being an Arsenal fan, where
Mhm.
typically you can look at last season against the teams that you'd expect Arsenal to keep a clean sheet. They would concede a silly goal, or James Justin would score a brace from ridiculous angles. And it seemed like that where teams wouldn't take many shots, and when they did, they'd be low XG, but they'd fly into the top corner.
Yeah.
And Arsenal would be more, I don't want to say they'd be concentrating less, but they maybe take a few more risks defensively if they were felt confident against other teams. So when I saw the good fixture run, there were concerns about that, potentially missing out on the clean sheets there. I also was quite happy with sort of having that double Bournemouth and double Palace defence set up there anyway, and with that one extra Arsenal player, and of course then Mukiele. And then, like you said, it was that upside perspective of if you can get an attacker. We saw what Arsenal did against Leeds, and that's when Gyökeres got his double-digit return. So if you can get the right one in for one of those games, then you'll be laughing. And again, I think Arsenal have so much depth this season that I just fear that one of these games feels like the right one where Arteta could rest any of these defenders. They all have strong cover now. And with Champions League fixtures, with Prem, with League Cup, etc., he will rotate them. And yeah, I guess a bit of fear around that. So Eze just seemed like an exciting pick, the new player, new kid on the block at Arsenal, and just felt if I was going to have him, this was a good run to go with it, with his minutes looking pretty secure with the injuries for who he was competing against.
Yeah, seeing him more central in that Odegaard role. Let's talk forwards now, because you've been having, Haaland and Guy, obviously Fulkrug is a classic case of going, he's not wildcarded yet. And obviously your chip strategy will, in fact, talk to me about your chip strategy, because you've still got bench boost and you've still got wildcard, right? So again, there's an amazing rank of 37k, but you've still got chips to play as well.
Yeah, and I think now is when I've started to think about when to play those two chips. Free hit I played in game week 3 and annoyingly went without both Palace defenders, and Lacroix got his attack in return and Munoz got one as well. So the 1 week I didn't have both of them, I then suffered. And as you sort of click through whether you use an FPL team or scout or any of those, and you're seeing all of these, how's my team going to look moving forwards? I keep liking it. And I'm seeing transfers rolling, and then you've got AFCON, and then you're going, well, hang on, we're going to be in the second part of the season. So I've started to focus on it a bit more and just trying to find game weeks where I can attack it a bit. So it's coming down into a couple of options. I think at the moment, one that I drafted today was looking at a wild card around game week 13 and then bench boosting 15. The other one is doing it right at the end and sort of bench boosting in 17 and wild carding in 18. Again, might have a bit more insight around there. It's just one of those positions where the team looks good. So if I can see an opportunity to attack and also then get bench boost somewhere in that proximity, then I think I'll go for it. But at the moment, it just feels as if when defense is set, you can just use your transfers to attack attackers with good fixture runs.
That's the thing. If you're on the right defenders early, you haven't got to think like me, where I'm going, can I convert a Richards to a Munoz? That you don't have to make that move, because you look at Senesi, Munoz, and Gabriel, and they're just a set 3. And then defender 4 and 5, they're good. You've got Mukiele in there. Like you're so well set. I absolutely think you don't want to be using transfers there, and you've got the luxury. Your team doesn't, other than Fulkrug, there's no give there that you haven't. Well, I'd assume you'd have wildcarded because everyone else has. But Fulkrug's your giveaway, so I guess he's going this week. Remind us what you've got in the bank and how many free transfers.
Yeah, so it's 2 free transfers this week and 0.2 in the bank.
Yeah, so a little bit to play with. And in terms of AFCON transfers, obviously we're going to get 5. You're likely to wildcard after we get those. So you could be in a really strong position of wildcarding, and then 1 week punts might be strong, because I don't think that's necessarily going to be the way to play it with the AFCON transfers, because of course you can carry them for as long as you need, and you can carry them over wildcard. So I guess you'll be in a position where you'll be looking at maybe a few shorter term punts on wildcard, not necessarily 1 week punts, but 2-3 week punts, because you'll have so many transfers and a new team.
Yeah, and I think like part of the reason why I've not bench boosted yet is because Fulkrug's been in that team, and when I then look at correcting it for a bench boostable team, I'm not going to want that money tied up in those players, because by having someone like Fulkrug not playing, it's kind of forced my hand into having a back 4, back 5, and realizing that it was a stronger strategy. So yeah, exactly that. With those AFCON transfers with wildcard, the plan would be go for some high potential during that wildcard or during that bench boost, and then look to just get them out and get money invested in the right places again.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk forwards now. Guys, if you're enjoying the video, do hit that like button, but I'd love you to subscribe today as well, obviously to this channel that you're watching on, but also go check out the details at the bottom of the screen and in the description, FPL_double pivot. That's Kieran's YouTube channel. And you can check him out on Twitter, FPL Discomfort. Let's talk forwards because you're buying a forward. I'm buying a forward. Feels like everyone's buying a forward because everyone's had enough of João Pedro, or they've had enough of Fulkrug, or they've had enough of maybe a Gyökeres. These are the three where a lot of people will be going this week. Mateta, Waldemar, who was the highest transferred in last week, but then blanked. Mateta, who's gone up in price already this week on Sunday night. And now Igor Thiago, second best performing forward in the game. Like, got to discuss him. Where are you at? Let's take these one by one. Mateta's where everyone else is going, Kieran. So I'm going to probably say you're not looking at him.
No, and like the fact that I am bringing a striker in this week, part of it is just like knowing that I can wildcard them out, because I still don't think having money invested in strikers is great. I saw something posted on Twitter earlier today from FPL Crisis, Ash, where there'd been 121 double-digit hauls in FPL this season, and there have been 16 for forwards, with Haaland with 4 of them and Welbeck with 2. So, the upside for strikers just seems so low. And Mateta feels like the flavour of the week when you look at those fixtures. But again, we have these anomalies, and we look at that Bournemouth game, and if you remove that from his data, which that took up 60% of his goals this season, it was 47% of his XG this season, it's 38% of his shots. And even when he has returned, that's the only game he got bonus points in. Yeah. So in the other games he scored, he doesn't get bonus. So for me, when I look at someone like Mateta, even though the fixtures are there, their defence is so solid, Munoz is so solid, Sarr is so solid, that I just think, does he have a ceiling for that much money invested in it? Or is he someone who you really need 2 or 3 goals to sort of justify it?
Interesting. You're right. With bonus, we sometimes forget you're competing with your teammates. And Mateta has very good teammates that mop up the BPS. You've just mentioned all those names. You could argue Waldemar less so. In fact, what makes Nick Pope such a good pick amongst Newcastle defenders, or compare if you want to cover that back line, is, again, competing with defenders, Nick Pope does better in the BPS than the front 4 in front of him. Henderson at Palace does worse for BPS than the 5 in front of him. Which is why I went Pope over, say, I don't know, a Malik Chow. Waldemar then, someone you are looking at. He's a vibes pick. He does play 3 of his next 4 away from home, and I always question Newcastle on the road in terms of ceiling. Perhaps doesn't come with Mateta's or Palace. Newcastle don't come with Palace's goal threat, but he's been very impressive so far.
He has, and again, like, for me, this is a short-term pick. Yeah. And looking at that West Ham fixture, who are awful at anything in the air, and he's pretty tall, and whether or not he means to score, he'll score off of a part of his body, whether that's his shoulder, his head, who knows. But at that height against West Ham, he's appealing. And then when you look at, again, the bonus points just adding into it, if we're looking at DEFCON being worth those 2 points, and we want a striker where we can get an extra 1 or 2 points, and when they lost to Arsenal, he managed to get a bonus point. When they lost to Brighton, he got 2 bonus points. And the only game I think he scored in where he didn't was against Forest, and that's because Bruno G absolutely dominated and Dan Burn got an assist. But outside of that, I look at him and go, look, if you score against West Ham, I think you're getting 2 or 3 bonus as well.
Yeah, I hear that. The opposition is great. If you're on free hit, for example, he's an obvious transfer in. I do just want, and actually playing away from home for Waldemar isn't bad this week, because I just feel like that stadium, they could turn, and actually sometimes playing against playing away from home, if it's a West Ham at home where there's a toxic environment, it's a good fixture. And look at the numbers there from FPL Matt. 20 goals conceded so far, 27 big chances conceded, 105 shots in the box, the worst so far. Like, they're just bottom of the pile, West Ham, as things stand. Igor Thiago. Penalties, Brentford, quite surprising. Talismanic, goodish fixtures. I think Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Brighton, Burnley is a goodish set of 4. Any interest there? Because again, he's lowly owned, so someone you'd look at. Yeah,
he's a difficult one, because I've been anti-Brentford all season, expecting him to go down and stubbornly sticking.
Like Wolves last season, mate.
Yeah. I've stuck my flag in the ground and I'm refusing to budge, and then I'm seeing them beat Liverpool and going, I might have to budge on this. He's impressive. We didn't get to see him at all last year, and he's someone that I think they had high hopes for, and just seems to be performing well. I think you're right. If you were looking at these games and predicting what the scores would be, you're probably predicting clean sheets for Newcastle or Palace, or thinking they would.
Yeah.
But if they let a goal in, you'd expect it to be Igor Thiago. And at that price point, I prefer someone like him almost being that second striker in your FPL and still having like a 4-point-something third striker, because that £1.5 million saving is a lot that you can then utilise in midfield and defence.
What do you make of Krupi Jr., mate? I want your opinion on this. I love him. He's a very different profile, I think, to Evan Nilsson. Evan Nilsson's brilliant for the team. Big money buy, of course, first choice when fit, pretty much. But as Krupi played his way in, regardless of an injury there, like we don't know if Evan Nilsson yet is back for game week 10, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be out for long. But Evan Nilsson is great for the team, brilliant for Semenyo and Kluivert, but maybe not the best goal scorer in terms of his actual goal scoring numbers at Bournemouth. It's not been great compared to the kid who is just a pure like goal getter. And I don't think his work for the team is as valuable, but if your work for the team is just goals, which it often is as a number 9, then Krupi Jr., I think, could keep his spot. And at 4.5 million, like, if he does keep his spot, everyone's going to have him. But obviously, the group think there is Evan Nilsson comes back in. But does he?
Yeah, it's hard to drop someone when they're doing what he's doing. I'd expect him to hold on to the minutes to start with.
Yeah, me too.
I think there's also the concern as well, like Enezu now is coming back to fitness, so he's going to be a sub, right, for every single game, but he will be getting sort of 10, 15 minutes off the bench as well.
Yeah.
If you're then looking at that, will there be a game where Evan Nilsson starts and Enezu now coming off the bench? Which, and you're not going to hate that. You probably prefer that if you've got a Krupi Jr. in your team, because that then means you're not getting just 5 minutes with him for 1 point. So I think he's a good pick. Again, I think it's one where he's hauling. He is getting double-digit returns. He's a striker who will shoot from anywhere. He's unbelievably selfish. I imagine Semenyo's hating it right now.
Yeah.
But he's good. And when you're looking at where you want to put your value this season, I think he is just a smart play, whether he's your second or third striker.
Yeah, I agree. Mate, let's see a team. Before we do, just want to give a shout out to our channel members. Kieran, you've been a channel member for ages. Love having you in the Ultras. We've got a WhatsApp group. There's only a small community of like 25, 30 of us. But if anyone wants to join our WhatsApp group, you can check out the join button below or link in the description. Join as an Ultra if you fancy. We're keeping it quite small though, that group, so there's probably only a couple of spots available. Likewise, squad members get all the extra stuff and video content from me as well. Appreciate you guys obviously liking and subscribing and checking out Kieran's channels. All his info also at the bottom of the screen. But look, you're here for his team selection. Krupi Jr. could fit in with your look though, mate, because you're often playing only one up top, and obviously you've got a lot of money in your midfield and a lot of money at the back. Talk to us about where you're at this week before transfers. This 11 before transfers looks really good. And this is the sort of 11 we've seen week in, week out with you. Like 4-5-1 is something you've played a few times this season.
Yeah, it looks good for this week. You know, there are no Palace attackers in there, but there is Munoz that I feel covers that and probably is the first choice of any Palace player you want right now. Goalies is whatever for this week. When you're picking between Petrovic or Dubravka, you should go fine, whichever one's in there. So I'm happy with the defence. It is just now thinking about having transfers in hand, having the AFCON come in, having Wildcard, having Bench Boost, of just thinking, is there anything I can really attack and go for?
Yeah.
And Walter takes my fancy. You know, Krupi Jr., the reason why I can't have him is the double up in Bournemouth defence and Menyo there. Otherwise, he would be such a logical move. But looking at trying to get in someone like Walter for Fulkrug, well, that's going to take a lot of money that I need to take out of the team with only 0.2 in the bank.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at doing something bold at a time when people are wildcarding and bringing him into their team if they don't own him. I'm looking at transferring Cody Gakpo out of the team and bringing in Granit Xhaka for a few weeks, because I really like Xhaka's upcoming fixtures. I think he's going to have a good floor of sort of 4 points. He's got, if I'm not mistaken, it's Everton at home next, which isn't the worst fixture in the world. Particularly with how we're seeing Sunderland performing.
Yeah.
So looking at him enables me to get Watermada in, and then does enable me to move Watermada to Matessa if I wanted to, or then just reverse it on the wildcard or with a couple of free transfers again.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Xhaka was my favourite 5 million pick at the start of the season. You'll know that. I banged on about him and he's been brilliant. Most distance covered, by the way. You might say, oh, you don't get rewarded for that in FPL. You kind of do, because defensive contributions and recoveries for a midfielder are where they're earning their DEFCON. And if you're covering the distance, you're very likely to be picking up loads of recoveries in the middle of the park. And actually, when you look at Xhaka and Siddiqui and Anderson and Munoz, they've all been great for DEFCON. But Sunderland have been the surprise package of the season. They've been awesome. They've got all these new signings. They are gelling, which you often don't see when you have so much activity in the summer. So I don't mind those picks for you, mate, at all, of course. And I'm not going to tell you what direction I think you should go in. But one idea I have got, I'm just going to throw it out there for you, because I know Krupi Jr. is such a Kieran pick. But I also know there's a very good chance by game week 11 he's not starting and Evan Nilsson's back in. But I think that's fine with your squad. I know you've got Mark Guiu, but knowing you're going to wildcard then bench boost, very likely you've not got to worry about a bench boost. So I would go full to Krupi Jr. And I know that leaves you with Guiu and Krupi, but you'd always have a good first sub, even if those two aren't playing. And then you can go Petrovic, because obviously you need the Bournemouth spot, to, I don't know, Pope or whoever you want to buy. Like, you could go and buy any goalkeeper because you'll have loads of money in the bank. But I just don't love double Bournemouth defence for you now. I feel like the Bournemouth fixtures are turning a bit, and Petrovic and Senesi is going to be obviously playing most weeks. Have you considered that, or is it just purely the Watermada option?
I think it's the Watermada option just for that upside. I don't disagree with what you're saying on those picks there, and there is still an argument as well where Senesi could be moved out for another player. But even with bad fixtures, the problem with doing the two moves that I am is I'm then probably looking at benching Semenyo to have Watermada start.
Wow. Could you bench? I mean, you can't. Mukiele, you don't really want to bench Mukiele, do you? But yeah. Hard.
No, actually, that would be to get Xhaka starting, which again sounds crazy to start Xhaka over Semenyo. But and we saw Semenyo do well in game week 1 against Liverpool, where I had him sitting on my bench for that game week, not thinking he'd do too well. Yeah. So there are those risks associated with it. I think part of it is I've seen some people, when they get off to a good start of the season and where their team is almost where template's heading towards, sit back and just enjoy and coast that, and that seems to work well. But I think I'm the kind of person where I just want to almost push the envelope and just see if we can get a few more jumps, because ranks are so unbelievably close right now. I've had some massive green arrows that have got me up to here. And I know lots of other people that all it takes is getting sort of 15, 20 points above the average and you're jumping 1 million places still.
Huge. Yeah, huge. And the way you play the game, it's all or nothing. So you're not going to get to 35k and be like, oh, I'm the best content creator out there at the moment, I'm just going to coast. No, you're still going to be aggressive, chasing differentials, playing the high upside. Captaincy this week. As an Arsenal fan, I just want to throw a name at you. Is Gabriel under consideration, or is it just Haaland? Is it silly looking at a defender? I mean, Gabriel could have had a 20-odd pointer at the weekend. If he doesn't hit the woodwork, if he gets the assist, which everyone thought he had got, and it wasn't an assist, it didn't come off him, but it was so close, that I think Gabriel is actually a legit option. I'll be going Haaland, and Haaland's still my preferred option. But are they the two you would look at? Yeah,
no, I think Gabriel's a good one. I think one thing that's been interesting with Arsenal is seeing Gabriel get DEFCONs this season. But for me, I've seen it happen with quite a few other teams where they're not trying to play out through the high press anymore. It's too risky to do that against an Arsenal or a Liverpool. So they're going long, and lots of teams have a big striker. But Burnley aren't one of those teams, are they?
True.
So, their escape route is probably going to be putting that ball out wide. So I don't think he's quite got that DEFCON potential, but he's still going to have that set piece threat, and you'd expect a clean sheet. And I think when you're comparing it to Haaland, probably is quite attractive. I think there's some people looking at what Palace did to Bournemouth and Matessa getting all of those shots in that game and thinking the same could happen. But I'd be surprised if Bournemouth approached the game the same way against City as they approach a game against Palace away from home.
Yeah, okay, nice. Mate, I love that. I've loved our chat. I look forward to having you hopefully back on very soon. As always, thank you for being a regular watcher, and I'm a regular watcher of all your content. Like I've so many times looked at your tweets and shared them around different group chats and stuff. So make sure you're following Kieran on Twitter. Make sure you're following Double Pivot on YouTube. Guys, thank you for watching. If you've got a comment for anyone, drop it below. Likes and subscribes on the way out, and we'll see you in the next. Bye-bye.